right now. So I appreciate this therapy.
I gotta say,
but it's still communication. I mean, it's just speaking of therapy. It's okay to need therapy.
Yeah.
So many of us do, and it's like a tradition that we don't need therapy, and that's so not true. I would say most people could use it.
I would agree. I'm just learning that, though. I'm just learning that it's okay, and I can let go of the superwoman syndrome. Saying that I don't.
That is an epiphany, girl. That is an epiphany.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is an epiphany, and I would sit with I would sit with that for a moment, because it is a turning point in your life, and
what brought it on? I'm curious. Now you've piqued my interest. What brought that on? What
I'm trying to finish, and I could see it. I'm right at the end. I can see my finish line, and I just got this new position at work, and I'm in a really good place. This is finally what I want, and because the field is different, my background is different from most of my coworkers. I was kind of struggling with the way they were training me. And so I'm not used to that. I'm used to everything coming a little easier. School came easy for me. Even college now, the work is easier. So the fact that this didn't come easy really messed me up. I have two really young children, a soon to be 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. That's a lot in itself. I thought that would come easy. I thought that they would run around the house and there would be a rainbow and a butterfly would land on the shoulder.
You bought the Kool-Aid.
I did all the Kool-Aid, and it didn't happen like that. And my husband, he is amazing. And the one thing I realized about Brandon is he is big on mentorship. And so it's very important to him that we have this, that we're this image that people can look up to. And it's not him trying to be the Joneses. It's him genuinely trying to be this great person that other people can look to.
Yeah, it's not that he's better than or that you're better than, but he wants to be proof of performance.
Yes.
Or proof that his philosophy and approach to life is working.
Absolutely. Especially as a Black male in this society that we're in, around the people that we're around. And so I was trying to live up to that expectation, and he didn't even ask me to, but he's so good. And so my thing is, if this is the worst thing, if this is the worst, I can do this. And so I was trying to do it all and still find time to be me. And the more I did everything else, and then of course, there's a thing from other women, our mothers included, where it's never really enough. So I'm trying to do all of this, and I've stressed myself out so much. I got vertigo and fell down the steps and some more stuff. And I was like, okay, something needs to change, because I can't fall every time. I can't have an aha moment.
Yeah.
And and something.
You got too many people dependent on you right now.
Yes. So I took a step back, and I had to have a couple really hard conversations with myself about the fact that I can't do it all. And I'm still having those hard conversations. Within having those hard conversations, I found out that superwoman syndrome was a thing. And I think that I was reading something talking about how out of all of the ethnicities, one of the most educated ethnicities or minorities is Black women. We're one of the most educated, one of the most successful.
That's true.
And
over 73% of us have more than one degree.
Yes.
Black women.
But Black women also suffer. We're like the biggest people who suffer from this superwoman syndrome. This feeling
we're overcompensating.
Yes, and do everything on top of wearing your armor as just a double minority, a Black woman. And I decided I don't want to do this no more. Wow. Took my cape off and laid it down, and now I'm trying to live in this, but it's been like 2 weeks. So
wow. And I think it's so awesome how God works. Because really all Queen's Moves is really about being in transition and finding some stable ground and taking back the power of being able to define your own strategy, not be the victim of somebody else's strategy or expectations, but being able to take, and I empathize with you because I have been you. Sharonda will attest, I have been that person. I think my fibroid scenario was probably the worst of being so focused on moving forward that I didn't even care about my own health. And not having been able to commit to relationships was a byproduct, but that's why I'm so passionate about teaching this stuff, is because I'm not unhappy, but I can see, because I have spent time reflecting, where there's an opportunity to have done some things differently. And where I've had successes and wanting to help someone else do better. And having these conversations with people who are unafraid to share their Superwoman syndrome. I mean, I am admiring Sharonda's relationship, but I also know that they had super people syndrome as well, because they were coaches and giving everything to their kids. I mean, I know I think it's something we all experience when we're trying to find ourselves. It's an unavoidable truth. But what I can tell you is that contrast brings clarity. There is no clarity if you don't have confusion and you know for sure what you don't want. Then you know much better what you do want. And you really can't even get to a really clear objective if you haven't even felt the resistance against what you don't want, or have experienced something you absolutely are sure, I am never going to do that again. Then that's clarity. So what you're experiencing is rushing forward to what you really probably had been asking for, which is, how do I handle this Superwoman syndrome? Well, you handle it until you crash. And then you realize Superwoman's not real.
I'm out of gas.
So I don't have to chase it anymore.
Either that or physically your body will shut you down.
It sure will. It sure will. Your body never lies. It never lies.
You can't hide from it.
No, it never lies. It will hide stuff for you, but it will pop up in the most inopportune time and be like, hey, just so you know.
That's the difference. When it comes up, it's not when you want it to. But
no, it just snatches you and goes, hey, just wanted you to know I'm aware of the stuff that you're telling yourself that's not true. Because I've been holding it. And it wakes us up, but it's an awesome indicator. So I have had to learn to fail forward, and then it becomes really not failure. It's like the chess game that we keep talking about, where chess isn't really about winning or losing. It's about learning new scenarios so that you can recognize them the next time you see them and make moves better than the time you did before, because there's a million different scenarios. So the better you get at chess, the more patterns you see, the more moves you're recognizing, the more quickly you're able to make a decision. So this situation for you is just an opportunity to say, oh, let me reflect and find out all of my triggers, what happened before this, so when these situations come up in the future, I can react differently.
called freedom.
And that is freedom.
Yeah. It releases a lot of the inner stresses that you build up within yourself on your own, trying to be everything. And once you come to that understanding in the next, you said 2 weeks, just wait. It's going to get even better.
It does. It really does. It really, really does.
And you'll help everyone else around you. It'll impact not only you, but everyone else.
Yeah, I'm hoping I can get there.
We're going to be there with you. So I'm going to share my screen and go through. Oh, I'm sorry. I have it plugged in 2 screens and it doesn't like that. There we go. Okay. So as I was saying, Queen's Moves is not always about winning against someone. It's not always playing against someone. Chess is played in your mind before it's played on the board. And so all the scenarios that we're talking through and all of the work that we're doing to kind of reframe the way that we think so that we can be more strategic is really about learning how to live in a space where there's other players, there are other pieces, there's a board, and we got to play the hand that we're dealt in the space that we're given. But we get to learn, what's cool about life is that you get to learn and constantly move forward. Life really doesn't ever let you go backwards. You can never really go backwards. It's a misnomer, because today is always a new day. And even what happened yesterday, if you try to relive it, it's a new version of it. It's not really going backwards. So that's a great thing to embrace and help to look at the glass as always half full versus half empty, because every day is filling it with something different, and it's never really empty. I heard this really great sermon about how God he doesn't fix a broken cup, he gives you a new cup. And when you have a broken cup, when you receive things, it just kind of goes through the cracks and it's just constantly pouring out. So you never get the feeling of being full. You just are constantly, you have great experiences, but they're kind of like processing through you, and you're not ever really capturing the wisdom of it or enjoying the moment of it. You're in it, but it's like you're always looking forward to the next thing, which is the Superwoman syndrome, right? But when he gives you the new cup, when he fills you, or when things come into you, the good experiences come in, they don't flow out immediately. You get to shift into being overflowing, which is different than things going through you. Overflowing means you're holding it and having enough to give to others, which is different than I'm just a pastor. And that was a really huge paradigm shift for me, because I want to be full to overflowing, not just a pipe that's access to information for someone that I don't ever benefit from because it's just passing through me. And I think that's what we want for our families, and we want for those around us, is we don't want to just pass information through us. We want to capture it, benefit from it, learn something, and then take that wisdom and share it with someone. It's just a totally different experience. And it does take kind of recognizing that we get the opportunity not to just be an old cup with tape on it. We constantly have the opportunity through prayer and meditation, through being grateful, gratitude, journaling, all those things, to take a moment and become a new cup. And that just was an awesome thought for this week for me. So last time we talked about competitive intelligence and how chess is not just a simple one-dimensional game. It's actually multi-dimensional, just like life is. And when we are engaging with the world around us, we're not really just win or lose, yes or no, mine or yours. It's actually a lot of information that we're taking in. We're taking in a lot of exchanges with people, exchanges with things, exchanges with ourselves. There's just a lot going on. And when we look at trying to assess that to determine how we should interact with that, how is strategy for Queen's Moves is about how am I going to show up in the world? And in order for me to know how I'm going to show up in the world, I got to know who I am, but I also got to know what world I'm trying to show up in. But that takes patience and observance and engagement. And that's what I hope you were able to tap into last week, was be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of how it impacts you. Be aware of your triggers. Be aware of how other people talk, what their barriers are, what their boundaries are. Don't miss those little nuggets of truth that are so valuable in trying to determine your next best move. It's important to know what you're working with and who you're working with. So one of the things I wanted to talk about this week is positional authority. It is one of the hardest lessons I had to learn while working at Langley, was that I had shifted from being an a manager of sorts, but more of a support staff, to being a decision maker. And I had a very tough time learning how people reacted to my title more than they reacted to me. So if I said something, it came with so much more weight than if, I said, I don't know, I really think your dress is nice. Me saying it as Michelle, like your peer, is different than me saying it as your boss. Because as your boss or as your decision maker or director or influencer, people infer all kinds of other things, like we talked about last week, where it's a conspiracy theory, like that they triggers in their mind. Well, if she said her dress was nice, well, maybe that means mine wasn't. Or if my dress was nice, then maybe she's noticing how I'm dressing, and is that impacting how I'm performing? Like all kinds of things will trip off in people's mind once you have a position that has influence over them. And that shift was so difficult because I care about people, and I thought we just one of the girls. I'm just trying to help you out. I have access to information because I am in management. And so because I'm trying to be still in the peer space, let me share that with you so that you can get a competitive advantage, or you can avoid a pitfall, or you can, benefit from it. But that's not how it was taken. Mm-hmm. It was taken as a power play. It was taken as bullying, or it was taken as lording my authority over. I was like, wow, I didn't have any idea. So the position that people are in does impact how they're perceived, and it does influence how they perceive you by virtue of the dynamic of the position. Not something that I learned in a book, not something anybody told me. I stumbled forward through that several times. But it because I was battling, are they looking at, do they really see me, or do they just see my title? And if they only see the title, then they're missing, I don't function that way. So how do I put myself in that box? I decided not to. It's like, I'm just not, but I can respect it, but I'm not going to allow the perception, whatever attributes people have put on the title, whether it be they were restrictive, or they're, they're not an advocate for me, or they don't really care because I'm just a number, or what, all that stuff that people just put on, you're my boss, you don't care, you don't understand, you can't relate. I had to explain to people, I'm sorry, I'm new to this. I'm like new money. Like I was poor yesterday. I got a position, I got a promotion. That didn't make me different. That made me have a new position. So it's not that I don't understand. It's just that I have new responsibility. And that new responsibility makes me have to behave differently, but it's not because I can't relate. So I'd say that to say, consider that is maybe how the other person is feeling when you're interacting with people of authority. They have their own issues that they're trying to work out, and sometimes they don't do it well. But be aware of that. Like I've had managers that just didn't communicate well, but they had the position, but they didn't communicate well. Well, I could be mad at them for not communicating well, or recognize that's your weakness. That's not because I'm a bad employee, that's your weakness. And I have to maneuver around that. So if you're a bad communicator, but you expect everybody to communicate well, I can't just run around going, well, I shouldn't communicate well because you can't communicate well. So why should I do it like that? You're missing the point. You missed the point. The point is get the work done. Figure out how to work around the barriers. And their lack of communication happens to be a barrier, then we're working around it, because I'm not going to be held up or restricted by not meeting your expectation and then losing the opportunity because you have pigeonholed me. So again, it's about where am I trying to be? But being considerate that the person on the other side of this equation who has the position may have some issues going on that impact how they deal with you. So in chess, for example, people play just to win space, or they play to get rid of the pawn. Like they play chess like checkers. Like I can jump the person and get rid of it, and when I don't have as many pieces, I must be winning. Well, chess is not checkers. It's not the same game. And the same thing at work. I think we've all heard in the workplace, this is chess, not checkers. Well, what does that mean in the workplace? This means it's a long game. It's not a short game. It means there's calculated strategy and moves. I have to think 3 or 4 moves out in order to be effective. I can't just worry about getting through this one situation. I have to realize that when I get through this situation, I have people who have long memories. So if I was acting out, but I won, and I had all these catastrophic fallout. The people that fell out on, they remember that mess.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come to promotion, somebody who remembers that mess is probably going to have something to do with the decision, but you will probably have forgotten.
Yeah.
If you're playing checkers. If you're playing checkers, you just want to jump the piece and move on. If you're playing chess, you realize that each move has a counter and every action has a reaction. And you're trying to manage that. So just knowing your environment and the organizational structure and the value of your social capital are important in playing the chess. The checkers, don't nobody care about. They don't care about any of that. They just want to get through the day, and they just want to get that check, and they just want to go home. And it's fine. But I dare say that the people that are most likely attracted to Queen's moves are not just trying to get over. They're trying to get through and up. And that's different. I hope that makes sense. So one of the things that I did really well through trial and error was figure out how to build. This is a secret sauce, right? So this is one of the things that I have figured out has been very influential in helping me to move. I didn't start working till I was about 30, which is crazy, right? Late to game. But I was able to move up from admin secretary to manager executive in a very short amount of time, considering how long people's careers are, because I was able to build relationships with influencers. Part of that is figuring out who's the influencer. And it's not always the person with the title.
Mm-hmm.
So building relationships with influencers for me was not only managing up above my position, but it was being kind and having some relationship with somebody that was in a position below me, as well as having some relationships with those across from me, so that I had, it's kind of like building a fort. You know, like you build the pieces to protect yourself. Well, that's part of it. Is I needed to have advocates. I needed to have somebody who's going to watch my back, or see things that I didn't see, or tell me stuff I wouldn't know, or just keep information flowing. And that means give some as well as get some, but you gotta be strategic. But then they also provide insight and situational coaching. So I was able to make friends with people who were in the same field but didn't work in the same building or company, to help get our insight on, well, how did you deal with this? Because sometimes inside of a company, people are competitive and they won't share because they think you're trying to get above them, past them, you're just trying to get at them for some reason. Not always the case, but people are kind of defensive sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I had to figure out, and building relationships is an art. I was joking with somebody earlier today about building relationships being intentional. And I say that to say, because there's this weirdness right now about everybody feeling like they got to be authentic. I got to be transparent. Can I just be me and keep it real? I'm sorry. Some relationships don't require you to be real.
No.
Some relationships are only situational. It's not a friendship. That's not the same thing. Every intentional connection is not always for friendship. Sometimes it's for partnership, or for a mutual goal, or for a situation, or for a project. And does that mean that I have to value them differently? No. Sometimes I only know I'm going to be working with you for 3 months on this project. I don't have to fall in love with you. I just need to make sure that we have mutual respect. I deliver to you what you need. You deliver to me what I need. And we walk away with a win. That's respect. That doesn't necessarily mean friendship. That doesn't mean forever. That means respect. And that's fair. And that's why I was able to leave a couple of positions, or why I have no problem moving after 5 years, because I'm leaving with respect. I'm not necessarily leaving with a bunch of best friends, but I can leave with respect. And I did my job, and I left it all on the field. I didn't hold anything back. And I think that's what's helped me to be able to be pulled forward in positions, because people know that at the very least, they're going to get good work and they're going to be given and work with somebody that can be respected. Sometimes I have the pure pleasure of having friends in the space, but it's new. But I can definitely say building trust is something that's also been very, very important for me. I over deliver. I try to know who I'm working with so I can give them what they need. So I know the position and the person, and I say yes a lot more than I say no. So I'm saying that has worked for me. Does that make sense? And has that worked for you?
I just want to clarify how
Okay.
are you saying that in regards to knowing who you're working with so that you can give them what they need? How does that work? Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking, has building relationships with influencers been something that you've intentionally done to create opportunities?
I think so. I think I think so. I'm learning now the value of these relationships. I think I did it before and I didn't realize it.
Yeah.
But now I realize that I'm building these relationships and I see the value in the relationships that I'm building.
And it doesn't have to be friendship all the time. Friendship and relationship are not always the same.
Yeah, that's the part that I don't know how to separate the two. We gotta be friends. You gotta hold my hand.
Now see, I'm complete opposite. I'm complete opposite on that one. I'm very selective of who I will let in that circle. I can be very I'm observant of people personally. And I'm really paying attention to study how people make their decisions, who they communicate with. I'm constantly watching that. And I can kind of read them individually. And I can make a conscious decision of who I'm going to let get a little bit closer. If it might be beneficial to me to get to know someone, strategically, I can do that. I can separate it, I guess is what I'm saying. And as you know, Michelle, it's I only let certain people in my circle.
Friendship is very valuable. And I think that's what you see as you grow over time is that your energy is precious. You really don't have enough energy to invest in 50 million friends, although you may have 50 million associates.
They can be drawn to you because of your personality. Certain people have a personality where, it's just infectious. But that doesn't mean that everybody needs to be that close. And trust is a huge thing for me. I have to trust you before I'll let you get even halfway close to me.
But you build trust in the workplace. I think there's trust in the workplace by delivering on expectations, right? So people trust you to meet the job, to get the job done. Okay. And that creates this cool space of opportunity where they might give you more projects, or they may become the go-to person. And so that's fair, and that's a relationship. Sometimes when you add friendship to that, that's an emotional aspect that can cause challenges when the relationship is affected by under delivery or not meeting an expectation. And then you start to blur the line between, but if you were my friend, you would forgive me.
Right.
But as my employer or partner at work, you might not, because it impacts you differently. And if you can't separate the two, it's really difficult to allow that person the space to I'm disappointed because you didn't meet this expectation. And you feel the same. You could do the same. It could be you that's disappointed.
Oh yeah,
But
absolutely.
that doesn't mean that the relationship is broken. It just means that this relationship is built on an exchange of a transaction of work. And if I'm happy about it, it doesn't mean that we can't keep working together. It just means that we can talk about it and get through it.
Right.
And it doesn't mean I'm a bad person because I didn't meet an expectation. But I caution against the assumption that building relationships with intention is fraudulent, because there are reasons for certain relationships. That if every job you had, you were best friends with everybody, you couldn't leave and grow. And everybody's not all for you.
That's true.
That doesn't mean you can't have a relationship with them, even if you know they're not for you, because you have a goal. And that's why if you have a strategy, there are some people you can tolerate for short periods of time because they're helping you get to where you want to go. And you will probably even do for them because it's an even exchange. I will sacrifice and give you what you need to help me get where I got to go. But when this is over, this is over. I'm done, but I will give you what I can give you. I say that to say, but it took me a long time to realize that that is a strategic or tactical way, because I was spilling my friendship all over the place and feeling drained and feeling unvalued because people weren't reciprocating. So I'm spilling my friendship all over the place, giving all of this energy, time, effort, skills to everybody because I love everybody, and they weren't reciprocating. And it felt bad. So I've learned to be more intentional with it. And that makes me cherish those who get to friendship even more. So the other thing is build a knowledge base in the industry. This is a trick that I used when I pivoted from one industry to the next, not having any background. And I think, Ken, you said you're kind of in this situation where you don't have a background in it. You're qualified with core responsibilities, but you don't have the expertise because you weren't groomed in it. Like when I moved from Krispy Kreme, which was community engagement and outreach in the retail industry, to media and having to do business development for a government contractor that delivered media services, completely unrelated areas. Common skill set was administration operations and relationship building. My trick that I engaged was following social media is a great tool. So I started following people that were leaders in the area of media and technology on Twitter. It wasn't Instagram back then because that was a long time ago. But on Twitter, I started reading periodicals, started doing research, watching YouTube videos, interviews. Who's the thought leaders at that time in media? Who's making moves? Digital signage was huge back then. So that's that screen you see in a hotel lobby where you can touch the screen and get all kinds of information, or what you see in maybe a metro station, or just in those interchanges where people need information from a computer that's a touch screen. Well, that was huge back then, but the company wasn't aware, and I was able to become conversant in and knowledgeable by finding that out because it was trending. And so then I did a little bit more research. And so when I came to the table at meetings, it appeared that I was very proficient on top of my game. But there was only 140 characters in Twitter. I wasn't completely like an expert, but I could hold my own in a conversation with people in the industry because I was in tune with what they were interested in. But I had to do that quick. So I had to follow and read. But I don't have a lot of time. So Twitter was my friend. And then taking Twitter and following up on things that were interesting and reading articles online. So that was one thing. It allowed me to be conversant and made me look really smart when people, because I had an opinion. You don't just read it to be reading it. You read it and then you kind of internalize it and find an opinion, and then have something that brings to the table. Another thing that, again, industry shift was huge. So I had to figure out who are the local people who were influential, who knew something, or could, again, build relationships across the network. So I would go to chamber events, not all of them, but just enough to be visible in that community, try to attend conferences so I can get, again, conversant, not necessarily an expert. Happy hours, not all the time, but just enough to be visible and to be perceived as interested and valuable, because my position was business development manager. So then it was later on operations. So I had to be perceived as someone who knew what they were doing. So I had to be friends with people who were making moves. And friends, again, associate, but I guess a comfortable enough associate that, you know, hey girl, I see you, how you doing? Well, we don't have to go to dinner, but it's just being familiar enough that you could get a referral for business, that people would feel comfortable at the table with you, that kind of stuff. So then volunteering in an organization was an option. I didn't have time for that all the time, but I have done it in the past. Again, just to build relationships. And here's the other thing. People gossip all day, every day. They gossip all day, every day. So being in some of these situations, while you don't have to contribute to the gossip, you do hear some things that can help to position you to avoid some things or give you a competitive advantage because it's insight. As Sharonda said, she is a very observant person. If she had to jump into an industry that she wasn't familiar with, her observing skills would be incredibly valuable to get up to speed in a short amount of time. Like, wait a minute, what is going on in this landscape? And I've learned how to be of value, to constantly add value wherever I went so that I was able to win friends. It wasn't that I had to prostitute myself or do something I didn't want to do. I just found a way to, again, I'm on Twitter. They may have not known what was out there. I'd add some information they didn't know. Or, you know, when I volunteered, I had brought a skill to the table that they didn't have. You know, it just makes people appreciate you, and people work with people they like. Yeah. People want to refer and push and be around people they like. So it wasn't hard to be that person in line with where I wanted to go because I was engaged enough to make it interesting. That makes sense. I can also tell you, and I tell my kids this in various ways, but we all know that knowledge is power. That's a given. But when you have that knowledge, that power, you have to be responsible with it. And if you're responsible with it, you end up gaining respect. So for me, having information such as Twitter or whatever information I researched, if I was able to share it, I was seen as powerful. But that power made me want to give back and be responsible with that information to build business, add value, you know, help people move their ideas forward, which helped me to create opportunities. And again, the strangest thing I've ever experienced is recently having to consider looking for a job because I don't know what that feels like. And I'm not even really having to consider it, but it's just moving up here and I'm like, what if this doesn't work? And now I'm looking on the jobs and doing the resume thing, and I'm like, oh my God, I have never really had to do this. So I say that this is secret sauce. Like, if you do this, and I would say, Ken, you probably experience that, is people will come look for you when you deliver in one area. They'll come look for you to come help them in another area. So does this make sense? Building a knowledge base in the industry or whatever that position you're in, build enough information to make yourself valuable so that people want to pull you forward. Make sense?
It makes perfect sense. It makes, yes, it makes perfect sense. It makes so much, it makes sense because in this new position, I was hired to do something different from what everybody else is doing. And I was hired because of my background. I was hired to find the opportunities and create the successes, find the opportunities, train on the opportunities, and try to turn it into something different. Everybody else pretty much has a research librarian background. And so they either don't communicate or they spill it all, and then whoever the person is totally overwhelmed. So I have to, in this position, I really have to I don't want to say prove myself, but prove and really speak to my value and speak to why I'm there, you know. And I found myself over the last few months researching more, and sometimes I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, my background is enough, but I have to say things. And I find that when I talk about social learning theory and why we need to move to that, when I use words like that, they perk up, they understand it more once I'm able to, I don't know, sound more knowledgeable. I could say the same thing.
Exactly. You're giving context to what you're saying to leverage the knowledge to get the power.
Yes. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, it's not enough to have the background if you can't make the people see that your background is relevant.
Yes, absolutely.
And that means learning their language, which is why I'm saying I had to follow the thought leaders in that industry so that I understand how they talk, so that I could deliver the information to my audience in the way they're used to hearing it. Not because I didn't know. I just had to, it's like learning a new language. Going to a different industry is like going to a different country. It doesn't mean that you're not smart and cool and knowledgeable, but you can't present that if you can't speak their language. And so I encourage you to profile what types of people are in the industry that you are expected to support, so that you can speak the language that they need to hear it in.
Makes sense.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So before we move on, can I just ask a quick question? As a African-American woman, or just as an African-American, you know, there's always that stronger, smarter, better.
Yes, ma'am. That's true.
Where is the line, and at what point do you say, I've given you enough? I've proved my worth. You don't need any more.
At what line do you feel that it's too much to ask?
For them to ask, or for me to ask?
Yep. What is the trigger for you that they're asking too much?
I think when I've answered the question, when it's no longer a question and it's more an interrogation, that's when I'm like, okay, this is.
Okay, so let's just play with that for a second. Interrogation means that you're feeling attacked, or you're feeling less than valuable, and you're feeling like your words weren't heard in a way that satisfied their needs. Am I right?
Yes.
Gotcha. Is that your problem or their problem?
It's definitely their problem. But at what point do you say, I told you the answer. You have enough.
So here's my challenge to you. It's going to be real hard. It's not their problem.
It's my problem?
It's your problem. And it's not your problem necessarily that you're bad. It's your problem because it's your responsibility as a communicator to deliver the information in the way that the receiver can receive it. If that means smaller bites, and that may mean not the information is not the problem. It may be the format is the problem. If it's not the format is the problem, it may be the expectation of the hearer. So there's all this ancillary data around the delivery of the thought that is factored into making sure that they receive it. If you put it back on them to clarify this, you would have to assume that they would take responsibility for that. That's 9 times out of 10 not going to happen, especially if they are superior, right? And I say that in positional authority. So they're in a position that's superior to yours, not that they're better. And so they feel like your job is to find a way to get this information to me in a way that makes sense to me. Let me give you an example. I'm about to go work at DARPA. DARPA is a military-based environment. Military-based environment is based on hierarchy. It doesn't matter if the person above me is dumb as a box of rocks. If I don't give them the information that they need in the way they want it, it's my problem.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep.
I did my homework before going in there because I'm going into a position that supports an action officer. So first off, that language throws me off. What does that mean? But an action officer is actually the person who is the chief of staff.
Mm. Okay.
And their responsibility is to decipher information and break it into pieces and then reassemble it in a way that the person that they report to can make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
That means they're doing all the work.
Yep.
Right? And the person that they turn this stuff into is just making a decision, yes or no.
Yep.
But that person, if they don't get the information the way they want it to, that action officer is the problem. It's not the person at the top of the heap that's the problem.
Yeah.
I say that to say that is competitive intelligence. That's understanding the framework. And here's the thing. In some cases, you won't win. There's just no way to win. However, sometimes the goal is to get them to leave you alone. And I say that with all due respect. This is a tactic that I've taken. I can't give you everything that you need, but I know that if you like a lot of information, if I just keep giving you information, you don't ask me for it. I just keep giving it to you. So that means I don't feel the pressure of you coming and asking me questions because you're just getting a whole lot of information. So it's a nuisance to me, but you're not standing over my desk breathing down my neck either.
Mm-hmm.
So that was for somebody who was an information hoarder. They just needed a lot of information. But I felt like I shared enough with you to make a decision. Why do you have to come back and ask, like, what color green? Like, I told you it was green, but you want to know hunter green? Or, like, what is that about? Like, it's either green or not. So then I started saying, well, there's 17 shades of green. This one is hunter green. And if you'd like to shift it to, winter green, we can do that, but it's going to look like this. But the answer is it's green with the subtle nuance of hunter with the option of winter. So like, what? Yeah, too much information, but left me alone.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is you can only control what you can control, which is yourself. It may mean that there needs to be a little bit more observance, as Ms. Sharona would say, of the environment, how they interact with other people. Are they treating you differently? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you, if you come to the table with, and I'm a Black woman, for real though, but if you come to the table with, I'm Black and they always expect me to do more, you're going to be irritated every time.
I'm irritated every time.
I bet this.
I'm just telling you. So either learn to live with the irritation.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, either you'll learn to live with the irritation or you're going to figure out how to get them to back up and give me some space to do what I got to do, which is do the work in a well enough fashion that you get what you need and you leave me alone. So
you have to observe the people basically, and everyone, and that's what I say when I watch how they react. And you learn who wants more information and who's okay with just half of it. Mm-hmm. And you just adjust.
And I will say that in a situation like, and I don't want you to go into too much detail, but in a situation where there's a couple of different people who are constantly being asked for information and it's never enough, or it's not the right information, or it come back and give me more detail. And it's because that particular environment, the management has kind of gotten used to a moving target. Like, it's never right. If I get information, I'm going to move the target over to the left a little bit. Mm. And so as soon as I get that information, I'll move the target over to the left a little bit. So this is about managing expectations, your own as well as theirs. So from what you said in terms of interpreting what you said, not feeling valued because people are asking for clarity and not trusting your ability to give them what they need is triggering your own sense of insecurity, not necessarily their question being the problem. There's a part of you that doesn't feel secure enough in what you're doing, and so they're triggered. They're just triggering something that's already there. Mm-hmm. And you can fix that with, I'm going to give you the best that I have. If you ask me for more information, I'm going to give it, but it's not an indication of whether I'm good, bad, or ugly. It's about whether or not you can digest the information that I'm giving you. I also would not encourage you to ask them, how do you want the information? Because they don't know. They don't know. If they knew, they would tell you, but they don't know. So that's where from in that situation, I would be looking at other people around me. How is the information when they deliver it being received? Because I would dare say there are other people who have similar scenarios, but it's not racially oriented. It's a similar pushback, but it's not because they're black or white. And how are they dealing with it? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
The safest place to sit is not to expect someone else to fix it. The best way to get someone else to fix it is to show every effort in trying to find a solution. And when they realize that your efforts are trying to build a solution and not taking anything personally, and where it falls short, the conversation may shift to, I know you gave me A, B, and C. Have you thought of D, E, and F? Versus, you should have thought of D, E, and F. It's a subtle change, but it relieves a little stress because you realize it's not coming for you. It's, how can I help work with you to get what I need? Do you see what I'm saying? And it's a dance. It does take time. This is not an overnight fix, but you got to know where you want to be, because you will do and whatever it takes to get to where you want to be. If you want to just go to work and go home, you'll find a way to nonchalantly give them whatever they want to without any emotion. Like, whatever, this is what you need, fine. If you want to grow in a position, you might find yourself doing some context research, doing this observation, understanding trends, just understanding the drivers, why these people feel like they need more information, studying, like, where did you come from? What kind of work have you been in before? Why do you feel like you have to manage this way? And it doesn't mean you'll change it, but you'll have empathy and be able to put them in context and be able to manage that. Manage doesn't necessarily mean change, but it does mean adapt and work with. And that is a huge shift. It's a huge shift. And it's not an overnight deal. It takes some time. But that's why I said that there are some people, if you build friends with influencers, you get someone you can go to for situational help. Because you complement that with the knowledge base about the industry and the friends that are influencers or have been influential. That combination is where you get these new tools, because you can ask better questions and you have people to ask. You're building your own resource network, and in the process, creating advocates for yourself, if that makes sense.
It's like my library of friends in different categories.
It's intentional. It may not feel like it, but it is, because people who do that can reach out and get answers for anything. They seem super knowledgeable because they have somebody in every industry or every field or every economic, socioeconomic stratus. Like,
Sure.
It's time. So now that you kind of know the environment that you're working with and you're trying to maneuver, and think of it this way, you are maneuvering, constantly maneuvering. So sometimes it's avoidance, sometimes it's moving through, sometimes it's creating distance, sometimes it's a lot of maneuvering you're doing. So it's not a one-shot deal and here's the answer and move on. Like, I can't give you this one thing to do will get somebody off your back. It might get them off your back today because they hair across their butt today. But if they get stung by a bee tomorrow, then your strategy is going to be a little different. So it's maneuvering, and I hope to be able to give you enough information that it's kind of like a surgeon, right? This is the war surgeon that just chops the leg off. and throws it in a pile for the Civil War. And then there's these brain surgeons who can do minute, detailed, maneuvers to cure someone. Like, that's the goal. The goal is to be able to have such an intuitive sense that you can make micro moves that have major impact. But early in the game, you're just moving stuff, trying to survive. And hopefully, as you learn, you bump up against things, you start to be more subtle and nuanced with it. And ultimately, you get to the point where you're a neurosurgeon. And you're like, I got that. I'm not even going to respond to that because that's not necessary. What I will do, though, is talk to Susie, because she's going to come back and tell you, I wasn't even there. Dropped the bomb and wasn't even in the room when it went off. People, do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a skill. It's a skill you got to put some time in. But you can do it.
I think I'm almost there. I think
you got a lot to work with. I think you're pretty smart. I think you're pretty brilliant, actually.
I'm almost there. This card though, but I think I'm almost there. Almost.
Think about the fact that if you were in a situation where you were stressed at home or in any other area of your life, one of the things that was the biggest thing for me to fight against was my own limiting self-talk. I felt insecure about myself. I felt like I wasn't smart enough. I felt like I had to prove to everyone that I was valuable. This is me. Before I even got to the office and anybody said anything, this is already in my own head. So then I bump into somebody who's saying the same thing. Now it sounds super loud. Like super loud. Now I can't think because I can't hear anything. So you got to put that in context. It's easier to do some of the stuff that I'm talking about when your mind is quiet and when you kind of made peace with some things and gotten clear about where you're trying to go. It's not easy to do when there's a lot of moving parts. It's not easy to do. But that's why I told you when I was younger, my solace in staying focused was I had 5 things I was focused on, and they were mostly about my kids. And whatever I did bumped up against, is it going to give my kids options? Is it going to keep them out of jail? I had some things that I had to do. And so I had to take a lot of nonsense to get that done. But I learned a lot in that space. So whatever you find out what your core is, then you can deal with a lot of this other nonsense. Mm-hmm. And here's what I think I used to say this at. I do still say this all the time. We work to go home. So no matter what is going on with these crazy people 9 to 5, that's not my life. My life is at home. I work for you guys so I can go home and have fun with my people that I love. So I'm gonna put that in perspective. You're not gonna be able to take all my joy because then I'm gonna get home and be cranky. So I'm gonna leave some. It's a conscious effort to leave stuff at the door at work. It's not easy to do. I had one of my friends was an HR professional, and taking in all of people's junk all day, it was very, very difficult for her to downshift when she got home. Mm-hmm. So one of our friends said, then find a physical regimen that will allow you to disconnect. And it turned into being a shower, like literally coming home and physically feeling like I'm washing off all this crap so I can enjoy the rest of my afternoon. But sometimes it can get that stressful where you have to figure out, what can I do to leave this at the gate or at work so I can come home and be a different person and pick it back up when I get there. Do you see what I'm saying? Because work's gonna go on anyway. It'll be there tomorrow. And the next day. And the next day. Mm-hmm. So, but the next thing is leveraging your own influence. So enlarging your territory allows you to expand your influence so you can have access to resources and help more people. I think at the end of the day, what we're all really trying to do is get into a position of enough power and influence that we can help somebody else, whether it's to help them get the work done or to help create an opportunity for someone behind us or to help the mission of whatever we're committed to. That's really the goal. I think we all just want to help people. That's part of the purpose is, what am I contributing? What am I doing that's helping to move the vision, the mission, the project forward? So your influence in this effort to enlarge your territory and enlarge your knowledge is important, because the better you get at this, the more people you'll be able to help, the more tapped into your purpose you can be, because you finally see how powerful you really are. And the queen is the most powerful piece of the board because it has the most options. And you have the most options when you have influence, because either people are coming to you, they need you, or you're creating something. It's the place you want to be. I think I stumbled into it, but then because I'm so analytical and I have my own self-limiting thoughts, I try to figure out, well, how did I get here and why? And that's what I'm really teaching you, is how did I get there and why. I got there because I wanted to help my kids. I wanted to prepare a place. My daughter said something to me the other day that was really interesting. She said she's never had the opportunity to work for a Black woman who was approachable and in a position of authority, which is unfortunate.
Wow.
This is incredibly unfortunate. So she's been 28 years on this earth and never been able to support a Black woman in a position of authority.
The unicorn. It's like you.
Here's the thing. But he says, which is why she felt like my role was more important than I had given it credit for. And it made me take it so much more seriously.
Absolutely.
Because, again, if I lived like it's only about the fact that I'm a Black woman in America and I'm an underdog and they're trying to kill me, and they got this bias and they got stereotypes and they are going to limit my abilities, then I would not stay in the game because I can't win. But what I can do is have influence over the people I have in contact with. And it's not because of the position. The position, for example, the last position I had, the position only gave me access to people. And my purpose was to help as many people as I could. So by having the influence, I was able to touch a lot of people. But I didn't care whether they were limiting me or not. I literally went in there. If you only gonna give me 5 years, then I'm gonna work the heck out of 5 years. I could sit here and worry about the fact that you're coming from me, which I already knew, or I could maximize my access for the next 5 years, which is what I chose to do. I'm not immune to the fact that there are people who don't particularly care to support a Black woman in authority. It's painful at times how blatant people are about how they feel about that. But if that was my focus, I wouldn't be able to use my influence. I would be so bent on trying to convince them they were wrong.
Yes.
How about you can be wrong, but somehow I got in this seat. So I'm going to use the seat. And if I use the seat well, and I use all the stuff I was sharing with you, somebody's going to pull me out the seat and put me in another one. But me worrying about making you right, not going to happen. And I say that because my first lesson, when that white man told me, you are a single mother and you can't take a position of to be director because your role is to be, I was like, whoa. Your perception of women has already in your mind told you what I can't do. So I could either run uphill trying to tell you you're wrong and waste a whole bunch of time, and you're a grown person, so getting you to change your mind is going to be difficult. Or I could end run you and get the position anyway and get away from you. How about that? That's what I did. But I will tell you, and that's why I'm saying it hurt me enough to make me never speak about my children for probably 15 years. I never told anybody I had kids. Never had a picture of my kids on my desk. Because you're not going to limit my ability to contribute because you have some preconceived notion about what a mother's limitations are.
Wow.
So I'm not encouraging people to do that, but I'm telling you that there's always a byproduct of whatever decision you choose to make. So I chose to end run him. I got the position anyway. I made it work. It was that shift from support to management but the cost was high for me because I wasn't able to share part of my life. I just kept shut it down because now we're in this to win. It's only late in life that I'm like, yeah, I got kids. Yeah, I got a couple.
They're so fabulous as well.
But it made me but it limited how people saw me too, because they didn't realize that I'm bringing to work the benefit of motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And motherhood teaches us a lot about management anyway. So they didn't get to know that. I had to figure out other ways to show that, because I can't tell you that I have kids, because then you're gonna think I'm not gonna show up to work on time. I'm always gonna be late. You can't give me a responsibility position because someone's always gonna come up, and I'm not gonna be able to like. There's a lot of stereotypes that go with that.
Wow.
But here's the deal: it's truth. It's what people think. Sometimes people are stupid enough to share with you what they're thinking, and when they are, you absolutely take it as truth. Say thank you for sharing, and I'll maneuver around that. And sometimes they don't even know that they've shared it.
That's
It made me hot, but it's here's the thing: it made me hot. It made me do some things that made me extremely focused, because I'm that person. Don't tell me what I can't do, because now I'm really gonna do it. But I could either focus on the fact that that person was really bad and I'm upset with them, or thank them for being the stone in my shoe that made me ridiculously anal retentive about figuring out who, what people are, why they're doing what they're doing, and how you're not going to stop me. Like, this is all about what you're not going to tell me what I can do. That's what strategy is. I'm going to keep playing until I figure out how to beat you. Because I know where I'm trying to be. I'm trying to be a chess champion. So if I got to keep playing you every Wednesday at 2 to be able to learn all the moves that you have inside of you, because it's not all the moves, it's just all the moves in you, so that I can take you down, I will do that, because I'm trying to move to the next level. That's mental toughness. It's focus. It's tenacity. And it's not something that it's not in a book and people don't talk to you about it, but people who succeed have it on some level. And it's when you can accept the fact that you do have influence. And I hope you're taken away from this that everybody comes to the table with some skills. They all do. And it's kind of nurturing them to the point where you have a confidence about you that you're willing to go to the mat for some things. Including, if you have a career goal, you're willing to go to the mat for it. I'm going to figure out how to maneuver in the space that I've been given to succeed and get to respect, knowledge, and power. Because those things create your next opportunity. And power grows from situation to situation, right? So in your first position, you may have just done the job well enough that people go, I just like having her around. The next job is you might find yourself, they go, I like having her around, so let me give her more responsibility. So you get more responsibility, and then they go, wow, I really like her work. I like how she produces, which is more power and more respect. And then it becomes, well, I like how she works and I like her, so let me put her in a position where she can maybe duplicate herself and have other people do that. So you've grown to a different level of power. And it just keeps going up from there until you're running your own world. But it does come incrementally, and there's nothing wrong with being stage 5 when there's 32 stages. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just continuing to move forward. And influence grows just like skill grows. So it's where you are, and that may be a goal. If I have X amount of influence today, maybe by 2 years from now, I want to have more influence, whether that's being able to share, have learned enough that I can share with somebody else. And sometimes it's the lessons, like what I'm teaching you is not how to do my job. I'm teaching you the lessons that I learned throughout all of my jobs, because there's not a book. And I'm like, somebody write the book.
So,
right.
Which might be my next chapter, right? So the last thing is raising your profile, which we kind of did touch on already. So when you accept projects or find projects that you can be responsible for all the way through to the end, document the process, not always the success, but document the process, because power isn't being able to duplicate. So if you create something, document the process so that you can hand that off, because that's a legacy. Collaborate and connect to develop the solution. Don't try to do everything on your own, because you use the access to other people to help you to build social capital and create positive spaces so people can advocate for you later. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That makes perfect.
So don't get so tunnel vision that, oh my God, they gave me this, I gotta do, like, don't forget that this is an opportunity to create social capital and build advocates and fans. Fans. And share the success with those who contributed. The more you give away, the more people give to you. And that's just in life. It's just a principle. But at work, people tend to be so selfish, if that's appropriate to say, but they're very self-centered or very selfish, and are only looking out for their forward momentum. But that does not really benefit them in the long run, because you can get to the corner office, but if nobody wants to work with you, are you really influential?
Wow.
I mean,
so true.
like, you can't get it done because nobody wants to help you, and they're always sabotaging you and sandbagging you. And like, you can get there and step on everybody on the way up there, but will they really want to help you? Then they become a dictator, right? So then I'm fire everybody. Okay, fine. Until I find a new job. Mm-hmm. So again, being intentional. Once you get your inner noise and your stuff calmed down, then you can do this stuff. But think about it, because all these little steps contribute to your next best move. They all matter. They don't all matter on the same day, but all of this matters. I think Sharonda would appreciate this. Observing patterns, observing how people communicate and interact and behave, observing patterns in your own success and failure. Like, what always trips you up? What always makes you trip out and be like, they're attacking me? If it's pretty regular, then just go numb with it. I'm not gonna let that affect me. Observe what energizes you and how you best work. No matter how bad your situation is, there's one part of your job that you probably really like. And that's the part that you will shine in and will raise your profile. Figure out ways to get more time in that space, and leverage your patterns for success. Does this make sense? Did that connect to the other things that we were talking about?
Yes.
Yay. Yeah. It's a process. It's definitely not an overnight deal. So you're fabulous. You're phenomenal. You're purposeful. Yeah, all that in a bag of chips. All that in a bag. So there's no session next week because it's Thanksgiving. We're not going to stress about that. But I do have a surprise. Nicole Wilson, who teaches a session called Confident Queens, which is one of several sessions that she teaches. She doesn't specifically focus on queendom, but she was my very first mentee. I was probably 21 or so. She helped me. She came over and babysat my kids, and she lived nearby, and I helped her through a really difficult decision that she had to make. I think it was, and she'll tell the story, but everybody was at that time, everybody wanted everybody to get married. And she was dating this gentleman, and you could tell she was not sure, not 100% sure. And actually, I had taken him in. He was living with us at the time. And I took her aside and I said, you have so much in you. If you feel like you want to change your mind at the altar, like you are literally at the altar, about to say I do, and you give me the look, then I will take your hand and take you out. Oh, wow. And that conversation made her feel comfortable enough to start sharing her truth. She didn't end up getting married to that person. She's in a fabulous relationship. She's an entrepreneur. Her husband's an entrepreneur. They live in Atlanta. She said there's conversations that we had, which I still have. The same stuff I'm telling you right now is very similar, but those conversations, she says she plays in her mind, and she mentions me in every speech she has, which I just found out when I was like, wow. So I was like, will you be kind enough to come and speak to my people? Because it's a full circle. And the fact that she even has a class called Confident Queens is amazing to me.
Oh, wow.
And so she's going to come and share her tips for being a confident queen. And I can't wait to share her with you. She's just a sweet and special person.
Can't wait.
Can't wait. Absolutely.
Yeah, she's awesome. So thank you both for being a part of tonight.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to meet you as well.
Absolutely. It was nice talking to you as well.
You realize you know each other, right?